The Neo-Assyrian Empire secured total geographic control of the Near East through industrial scale and unparalleled supply chain management. Before the 9th century BCE, military expansion faced a hard physical ceiling, the reliance on bronze. Producing weapons-grade bronze requires a strict metallurgical ratio, 90% copper to 10% tin. This topographical map displays the sparse, fragile trade nodes required to transport tin and copper. Sourcing tin demanded continent-spanning logistics, connecting distant mountain ranges to urban foundries. When weather, bandits, or regional instability disrupted these long-distance supply lines, the flow of raw materials stopped entirely. Without a steady influx of rare earth metals, armies lacked the material to replace degraded weaponry or increase their ranks. Bronze-equipped forces faced an absolute limit on their growth. Their maximum size and reach were strictly dictated by the fragility of their trade routes. The transition to iron weaponry offered no leap in lethality. Iron is no sharper than high-grade bronze. The advantage was entirely macroeconomic. This map shows the transition from continent-spanning bronze routes to dense, localized iron ore deposits blooming directly across northern Mesopotamia. This localized abundance allowed the Assyrian state to abandon artisanal, rare earth crafting and shift to rapid, standardized mass production. Managing this volume of military hardware required immense administrative tracking. The state relied on detailed records like the kuduru. A kuduru is a carved stone monument originally used to document land grants and property assets. Official inventories recorded standardized pricing data. Every single weapon was tracked as a fiscal asset, valuing items like a bronze battle axe at exactly 5 shekels of silver. This cold mathematical accounting provided the state with the exact data needed to project military budgets and scale their armories. Abundant iron decoupled military expansion from volatile rare earth trade networks, enabling an infinitely scaling military-industrial complex. Ancient warfare was constrained by a hard human limitation, the reliance on conscripted farmer militias. Military campaigns were strictly shackled to the agricultural calendar. Armies could only march during summer, caught between the spring planting and the autumn harvest. This Gantt chart compares the short 3-month uptime of a seasonal militias deployment against the rigid 9-month downtime required for agricultural survival. A state could not wage prolonged campaigns without risking the starvation of its own populace. Enemies of Assyria exploited this calendar, retreating into fortified cities to wait for the harvest season, forcing the Assyrian militia to abandon their sieges and return to their fields. Even with an infinite supply of iron, an empire cannot optimize for total territorial conquest if its soldiers are part-time farmers tethered to the seasons. In 745 BCE, King Tiglath-Pileser III seized the throne in a violent palace coup. His immediate objective was to sever the military entirely from the agricultural calendar. This schematic map breaks down his restructuring of the empire. He sliced 12 dangerously large provinces into 25 smaller, tightly controlled resource nodes. To prevent dynasties from siphoning resources, these sectors were managed by state-appointed eunuchs, ensuring revenues flowed directly to the central government. Tiglath-Pileser used these resources to create the kisir sharruti, a permanent professional standing army completely decoupled from farming, funded by taxes, and fed year-round by massive state granaries. The state implemented a policy of massed human capital reallocation. Deportations absorbed specialized foreign labor, such as Aramean archers, directly into the imperial military grid. This administrative overhaul stripped citizens of their agricultural ties, converting them into permanent assets of state violence and creating the world's first 365-day standing military. The output of this system was a force of tens of thousands of heavily armored, interchangeable infantrymen operating with mechanical precision. Their kit was heavily standardized. The state issued mass-produced iron swords, iron helmets, and iron scales sewn directly onto their tunics. They also engineered the standardized military boot, thick-soled, knee-high leather footwear, fitted with hobnails and inserted iron shin plates. This specific footwear eliminated environmental friction, granting the army the ability to march over brutal terrain, wade through marshes, and conduct relentless winter campaigns. The Assyrian soldier ceased to be an individual warrior. He was a standardized unit of military output, deployable on any terrain in any season. The ultimate application of this industrial complex was the systematic, mechanized dismantling of heavily fortified cities. The Assyrians transformed siege warfare from a chaotic, multi-year starvation strategy into a rapid, replicable engineering algorithm. They deployed the first dedicated corps of military engineers in history, specifically tasked with removing physical friction from the battlefield. The algorithm began with combined arms suppression. Archers fired composite bows in tandem from behind massive protective shields held by advancing spearbearers to clear enemy battlements. Next, engineers built precisely graded earthen ramps, assembling thousands of stones to reach the weaker upper walls. Multi-story wooden siege towers draped in wet hides rolled up these inclines. At their base, iron-tipped battering rams operated with pendulum-like precision to shatter the masonry. Simultaneously, sappers dug beneath the walls to ignite fires, undermining the mud brick foundations and triggering calculated structural collapse. Conquering a city ceased to be an unpredictable art. It became a devastating, mathematically certain logistical formula. The empire's infamous reputation for extreme cruelty, including flayings, impalements, and mass executions, operated as a calculated logistical tool. These horrific punishments were state-sanctioned psychological operations. By terrifying neighboring states into immediate surrender, the Assyrian army saved the massive resource burn required for a protracted siege. These acts were recorded as stark warnings using mediums like the Taylor prism, an 8-sided clay cylinder used to mass communicate military exploits and terror. This algorithm reached its apex at Lachish of their Sennacherib, where captives were impaled and defenses dismantled. These graphic reliefs functioned as permanent architectural propaganda lining the king's palace, maintaining a constant visual reminder to visiting diplomats of the cost of defiance. This dual-pronged system of mechanized physical destruction and relentless psychological terror sustained Assyrian dominance for 3 centuries. Eventually, the machine overextended. The massive scale generated constant internal rebellion, draining resources until the empire collapsed under the weight of its own administrative scale. The Neo-Assyrian Empire operated as the ancient world's first thermodynamic military-industrial complex, a vast engine relentlessly converting iron, grain, and terror into total geographic control.